اهلا بيكم في حلقة جديدة من الخلاصة. الحلقة دي مع ضيف مميز جدا، ضيف مش مصري، ضيف من الدنمارك. هو CEO and founder of CrossWorkers، أسس IT company جوه مصر. تعالوا نشوف رأيه ايه في مصر وفي التالنت بول جوه مصر. اسمحوا لنا ان الحلقة دي تبقى بالانجلش والسبتايتلز هتظهر تحت على الشاشة. تعالوا نرحب بهانز هنريك. Hello Hans.
Hi.
How are you doing?
I'm good.
Thank
and
you.
I appreciate that we're doing
Thank
it in
you.
English.
Thank you for taking the time to be with us and for accepting the invitation.
But of course.
You are a good friend. And by the way, Hans, I met Hans in a very, very, very weird situation that we are going to to speak about later on in that episode. But first of all, please introduce yourself to the whole audience.
Yeah, sure. My name is Hans. I'm the founder of CrossWorkers, an IT company. And I'm presently the CEO of the company. I'm Danish. I'm married, 2 kids. Have been doing lots of different things in my career. And for the last almost 15 years, I've been active here in Egypt. I still live in Denmark, but
Lucky us, right?
And now I have 2 countries, so that's nice.
Yeah, but how did you end up in Egypt?
It's a long story. Before I started CrossWorkers, I was an HR director in a Danish IT company. We were doing hosting, we were doing development, we were doing what we called web management. And one of the things that I was part of was bringing that company on the Danish Stock Exchange. And after doing that, we used the capital to basically acquire a company who actually had locations in Pakistan and in Ukraine. Mm-hmm. And that was to tap into the talent pool. Of course, it was a different situation 15 years ago. But we wanted to tap into that talent pool in those countries. Of course, there was a local organization, local HR and so forth, but I was quite heavily involved in those acquisitions and also in the integrations of those companies. So I basically saw this possibility of doing the business that we're basically doing today, which is tapping into talent and on the other hand, solving the problem of not having enough talent in Europe. So that's where it all started, the ideas of things. And then I had the opportunity to basically create my own company.
So you did your research?
First
you found Pakistan and Ukraine?
Yeah, I of course I had the experience on Pakistan, Ukraine. And then I had the opportunity to do my own company. And then, of course, you look at, well, who do you know? Where do you have your contacts and so forth? And honestly, it would have been quite easy for me to create a location in Ukraine or in Pakistan because I had contacts already.
Exactly.
But if we look at Ukraine, the analyze at that time was basically that they have the same demography as we have in Europe. They were going to do a lot of IT development in their own country and infrastructure and digitalization and so forth. And those things put together, I basically concluded that salary will rise quite significantly, which has turned out to be the truth. And therefore I basically disregarded Ukraine as a country. Pakistan, nice people, good developers and so forth, but it's just the wrong time zone for Europe. With the agility of development nowadays, time zone just matters.
Of course. And
travel time matters. And in addition to that, at that time at least in Pakistan, there was quite a lot of different terror related things and so forth. So even though I'm an old soldier, I found it to be a little bit too exciting and especially too exciting for customers to travel to. So therefore I disregarded those countries. And then what really matters when you do an operation like the one we're doing is the time zone span. So I decided, well, I'll look at a time zone band which is relevant to Europe. Finding the best location there, and then of course also travel time, because it's an illusion that you don't have to travel and can do everything online and so forth. You really need to travel also in order to really ignite the cooperation and escalate that fast and so forth. So I looked at this basically this time band and a travel distance and so forth from Europe, and then I look for some factors on the city or the country, and that's of course access to talent, it's language skills, it's what I call cultural readiness, and of course price level and the expected development of that price level. Yeah. Those are some of the most important things to look at. Yeah. And when you do that and look at the map basically, and it's as simple as that, then you just find Cairo as a quite attractive place. The only thing I would like to, would be that Cairo was part of the EU, but that's gonna take a few years, I guess. But you tap into a city of 25 million people, 50,000 graduates, really good universities, high language skills, a cultural readiness which is good. Egypt has had tourism since the age of Napoleon. Lots of tourism coming in and out and so forth. So, and the whole tradition of Egypt of working abroad just makes Egypt a really interesting location.
Yeah. So you're saying that you found the 4 aspects that you're looking for in Cairo, in Egypt.
Yes, definitely.
The talent pool, the language, the communication, the skills, and being culture fit. Yeah. So you've been operating in Egypt since...
Yeah, it's almost 15 years ago.
15 years.
Yeah.
When it comes to talents, was it so different 15 years ago and now?
15 years ago was before the revolutions.
Oh, yeah, exactly. That's why I'm asking.
So I basically started up before the revolutions, and I initially started up trying to partner up with some Egyptian IT companies. Yeah. For different reasons, that wasn't the right thing to do. And at one point, I basically took the decision that, okay, we'll have to do this solo, and I wasn't expecting it. But sometimes you have to believe that things are possible, right? And so I basically went to Egypt, stayed for 2 weeks. In those 2 weeks, I managed to hire the first country manager, the first employee on the management side. Yeah. I had some developers working already, but I managed to find that person. I found at least a temporary office. There's a funny story to that. And I managed actually to establish the company, which is a bit of a success to do that in 2 weeks.
Yeah. So you did that in 2 weeks?
Yes, 2 weeks.
A lot of people in here will not agree with you on that.
No, but sometimes if somebody don't tell you that it's impossible and you believe that you have the power to do it, then it's a matter of pushing for it. But of course there are funny stories to that. For instance, when we established the company, everything was going so fast, and I was sitting with this very nice lawyer very close to Tahrir Square, and she said, well, all the documents are ready and signed and and then she said, and then we just need the capital of the company. And I was like, oh, the capital. I kind of forgot that. And at least at that time, the lucky thing was that there wasn't basically any demand for the capital size of a company. You could basically do it for £1. Yeah. So what I did was I emptied my pockets. Yeah. So when we established the company, since then we built on the capital, of course, but when the company was established to basically get the company to exist, we established it, I think it was £4,900. That was what I had in my pockets at the time. And that's some of the things that you need to deal with things like that. You need to have that spirit and the entrepreneurship to do those things, right?
Yeah. So you believed in something based on your research. Yeah. You wanted to do it so bad. Yeah. You went to a country that except maybe few friends. Yeah. And then you started your company in just 2 weeks. Yeah. A Danish guy started a company in 2 weeks in Egypt. That's quite a very good message to deliver to everybody, every entrepreneur around the world. Establish their software houses and IT companies in Egypt. You just have to have like $200 and 2 weeks. So back to the question, was it so different when it comes to talents? Was it so different when it comes to the talent pool and the ease of getting talents from back then to now?
of course, the competition has been increasing, but it's always a balance. It's like a matchmaking, right? Both parties has to be attracted to each other, and of course, if you're a $200 company setting up a temporary office, you're not that attractive. Then you have to basically create that attractiveness by promoting your ideas, being there in person, being an inspiration for those people who are there. Now we've grown. Now we have some totally different offerings. At that time, we were too small, for instance, to have medical insurance. So, well, how could we provide that? And of course, the bigger the company grows, the more attractive it becomes, the more well known it becomes, and so forth. And on the other hand, at that time, it was also a little bit, let's call it sexy to be part of a European company. There are more competition between the companies now competing amongst the talent. And that, of course, puts different demands to the offering that we are offering. And I think now we are basically lucky to have an offering which is very much based on some of the experience I had from Denmark originally, where we basically were using HR and retention activities and so forth. The whole philosophy of that was different, or is still different between Europe and
changing with the generations.
Yeah, Egypt is catching up fast, but we leverage on that. We have a little bit of a head start on things, right? So it's a matter of being attractive. Because employees, they need to be in a place where they develop. If they don't develop, if they don't find it fun and interesting and so forth, why should they be there?
And if they found that they are going to learn a lot and being challenged in a company, they are going to be loyal to that challenge. I mean, the talents in Egypt do love to be challenged because they find value in what they're doing. So if you offer them great challenges, great environment to work at, or to work for, and then you have a very good and attractive benefits package, this is like heaven for them. So you're saying that the talent pool is there since 15 years ago. The only trade-off you are trying to make is always to be more attractive.
But as an employee or as an employer, you basically need to be attractive, and vice versa. Because an employee also has to be attractive. Otherwise, nobody will offer them a job.
Exactly. So this gets us to the next question, which is, when it comes to searching for talents, what are you looking for? What is the philosophy of your hunting? What is the best and perfect talent for CrossWorkers?
I always say hire for attitude and train for skills. Meaning that, of course, we don't take somebody in from the street who doesn't know anything about the technology. That's a given thing, that the people we hire needs to have the right technological level, the right sets of skills for the customer right now. And we hire, all our employees are hired specifically for a customer. But we also hire people whom we can also move to another customer if for some reason the customer stops with us or the like. So of course we need to find people whom we believe in as a person, and the personality. Personality is everything. You can basically train for a lot of things, but you cannot change your personality. And of course we look for people who are good in fitting in to especially European setups. Of course, language skills has to be there, and they have to have their technical skill set in order and so forth. But one thing which is for sure in technology is that what you do today is not what you're going to do tomorrow.
Of course.
So I would never want to hire somebody who's really good at something but don't want to learn anything new, because it's just a limited time that person will be beneficial for a customer, for us, and so forth. And then we wouldn't be able to offer that person a job, basically, at that time.
You cannot be outdated when you...
No, that's a duty both for the employee and for the company to keep people updated all the time. And that's not necessarily putting everybody on certifications and so forth. That's also giving them the right spirit, the right understanding, and a lot of the things that we are doing, and either by doing sessions or the like, is not, connected to then you get this certification or something like that. It's for instance, we're doing cultural education, both on in sessions, but also in the day-to-day life. We are doing education, talent training by giving assignments, not putting people
by
on
practice. You are making them practice everything. So you're giving them training, you're giving them time for self-development, and you are creating an environment where they can practice what they trained for, so that they can learn by practicing and by experience. So CrossWorkers is working with the Scandinavian countries, right? Europe, but in specific Scandinavian countries. So is there a cultural difference that you need to tap on? Is there something in specific that makes a huge difference between the Egyptian culture and the European or Scandinavian culture?
Let's start off by acknowledging that there is a difference in culture. Because some people insist, well, it's IT, everything is the same. No, it's not. There is a difference in culture. Let's then work with that. And some people tend to say, well, if there's a difference in culture, then it's a problem. But I don't think it's a problem necessarily. Sometimes it's something that you need to navigate, and sometimes it's actually a very good thing. Because Danish culture, Scandinavian culture, European culture, whatever we want to call it, is not necessarily the right thing in this world. We can also learn from Egypt. I find that Egyptian employees are extremely dedicated. Sometimes I've had customers who said, well, but we need to have some sort of a possibility to call people in and have a phone or whatever, so that somebody is in duty 24/7. And said, well, we never experienced that is actually a problem. People are really dedicated. I had this funny story with my daughter. She was having an exam. Day before the exam, her computer breaks down. Nothing. She was devastated, and I'm a father. What do you do? Well, if you are lucky enough to own an IT company, you might have a resource or two. So I called up the first guy in our internal IT, and he didn't answer the phone. I was surprised. He didn't call back. I was a little bit surprised. So I called the next one. He didn't answer. He didn't call back. I said, that's strange. Then the first one called, said, "Hi, Hans," and it was in the evening, 11 o'clock, totally out of office hours. "Hi, Hans. Sorry I didn't receive your call, but I'm in this restaurant with my wife," and so forth. And said, "Okay, stay there. don't worry." Then the next one called up, said, "I'm on a vacation, but how can I help?" and so forth. And those are the things that you just experience again and again and again and again. And I actually have to hold back, because it's always nice that people will help you and so forth. And that's different. I remember once I was traveling back from downtown we were in New Cairo, traveling back from an evening event there, and I was sitting next to our technical director, sitting in the car, and he was picking up his phone, and it was 11 o'clock in the evening. And well, I don't speak fluent Arabic, I don't understand fluent Arabic, but I know enough to know what the conversation is around. So when he hung up, then I said, why are you talking with one of the other managers at this time at night? And he looked at me surprisingly and said, well, but we always do that. And it's just something, that's just amazing to have that. That's a cultural difference. But it's a cultural difference which is extremely positive.
Yeah, exactly.
One of the things that European customers are always, nervous about is that, well, I need my employees to be creative. I need them to tell me that I'm wrong. I need them to come up with the ideas and not just do what I'm asking them to do. And that's because they have this idea of that a lot of companies have experienced from India, which is a totally different culture. I always say, well, but it's not necessarily like that. And I have multiple examples where developers, team leads, and so forth have basically told their customers, saying, well, I don't believe you're doing the right thing. Why are we using that old crappy technology? Why don't we use this instead, and so forth? And the result of that is actually that the European company or customer would basically say, well, okay, then go ahead, do it.
Yeah. Because
that's also a difference.
Yeah, if you are proactive and you know what you're talking about. Yeah. So yes, please do it.
Then when I normally always do these cultural sessions where I try to kind of inject some ideas and new employees when they start. And one of the things I always start off by saying is that in this company, you have to make mistakes, because the only way you can stress yourself to become better is to try something which is new for you.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things where in traditional Egyptian culture, you don't want to make mistakes. You want to, do things and make it right. But you need to pressure yourself in all. So those are some of the differences. And when we do sessions and work with culture, then we do it based on experience. We do it based on basically literature and do it in a proper way and so forth.
Yeah.
But already when we hire people in, of course we look at the personality. When you look at cultural reports and so forth, then it's always an average, right? So I want to find the ones which are dragging up or down the average in the right directions. And then we live by a culture. We have a company culture which also drags people in the right. And then there's a lot of our customer would bring on a team onshore in Europe, not to work because that's not allowed. So we'll bring them on. We will have meetings. We will understand what is going on and so forth. And there's some great stories on that as well.
So you're basically saying that there is cultural difference, but there are a lot of positive sides for it. But that's for the talents. How about businesses? Because businesses have cultures. When it comes to businesses, what culture does a business need to have in order to work with the Scandinavian or European countries?
Yeah, I think company culture is extremely important.
Yeah.
I have the urge to also comment on that in the light of COVID and a lot of people talking about working from home and so forth. The only thing in reality that binds together a company is the culture.
Yeah.
The culture will disappear if you don't stay together, if you're not together. That's why I normally say, well, if working from home and working everywhere else and not being together, if that was so super smart, why didn't we do it before COVID? It's not smart. Company needs to have the possibility to meet. They need to build that culture, otherwise it will disappear. And then the jobs will also disappear. So that's extremely important. I think when I look at Egypt, and I might get into trouble by saying this, but when I look at the employee level, whether it's employees or mid-managers and so forth, they can deal with it. The problem for Egypt is honestly on the managerial level. Because it's a different case doing business in Europe than it is doing business in the Middle East. And that is something that has to be accepted. There's a difference in many things. And it's difficult to write a book and just follow that. It has to be lived. And I would really hope that more, because lots of Egyptians are living in Europe, and doing. Some of them are doing well, some are doing less well, but that some of those people would actually see it as a call and get back to Egypt, work in Egypt, utilize on their experiences from Europe, and they would have a great possibility of actually initiating that work with Europe, because
few people are doing that, but we need more.
Yes, definitely. our luck is that today I have a really strong partner in the company. He's Danish Egyptian. He knows both cultures. He's fluent in both languages and so forth. I've spent a lot of time in Egypt, so just when we met this morning, you called me, well, you're pretty Egyptian, and surprised that I found the place and so forth.
You're more Egyptian than a lot of Egyptians, I can give you that.
Basically, I have a fairly good understanding of Egypt as a country. Yeah. And that helps us a lot, because I understand some of the things that are coming out of the Egyptian organization, and having the experience, we understand also what is coming out of Europe. Yeah. And you have to have that root in both cultures. If you think it's just fly in and sell things, it's not going to happen.
Yeah. You mean hitting and running and
you need to be there, because there's a difference in if you look at the difference between Sweden and Denmark, it's actually fairly big. There's a huge difference from Hamburg to Munich, and so forth. You have to understand that. Yeah. It's like if I was saying, well, it's basically the same doing business in Morocco, in Egypt, and Sudan. Well, it's not. Yeah. There are differences in culture. There's differences in culture from Cairo to Alex to Upper Egypt, and that's just. You need to understand that. You need to feel that, and that's also where we give value to our customers, right? Because you can easily find a company in Egypt or anywhere else in the world who has the right talent, but they might not understand the market, and vice versa.
Yeah. What about the common things that businesses need to have when dealing with all European companies? For instance, we were talking before we start or previously, and you said that trust is one thing that they are seeking and willing to have in the business that you're dealing with. Yeah. So what are other common things that businesses need to have?
As an example, punctuality, meeting deadlines, and so forth. You can actually have a situation, of course, something can occur and you might not meet the deadline. That's seldom a problem for a European company. Yeah. If they just know well enough ahead, and there's a reasonable understanding or reason for it. Yeah. But you need to inform about it. You need to have a little bit more of an open book.
Do not hide it.
Yes,
do not
exactly.
Hide it. Do not lie about it.
Yeah. Exactly. It's a strong word to use, lie about it, because that's basically not what I see in the Egyptian culture. Yeah. You're not lying about it. You're just trying to make it as good as possible for the customer. But sometimes that's wrong. Yeah. Sometimes it's better to take the meeting and say, well, we basically messed up our estimates. Yeah. It's because of this and this and this and that. We're really sorry about it. We'll try and do it, but this is just not possible. I had an example yesterday. Customer expects this amount of work to be done, and they have this amount of days. It's not gonna happen. Yeah. So I said, well, just tell the customer they have to prioritize it. Exactly. It's as easy as that. But the customer needs to know. Yeah. So things like that's a little bit different. And fair or not fair, we just have to acknowledge that we're not delivering a German employee. We're not delivering a Danish employee or whatever. We're selling an Egyptian employee. And that's not the same. It's like hiring a Danish employee in Egypt. That's not the same as hiring an Egyptian. So we need to acknowledge that there is a difference. And I would really encourage Egypt to spend more time marketing that towards Europe and doing it kind of in the right way. Because Egypt has so much to offer.
Yeah, we are getting into that in a bit, by the way. Yeah, okay. But just to continue the line of thought of the culture. So you're saying the Egyptian talent has positive side when it comes to culture, and businesses have to have some, first of all, acknowledge there is a cultural difference. Yes. That's what he said. And then start to deal with that in a proper way. Do not, let's say, make it sweet when it comes to delays or you messed up with something. Just be honest. Build the trust with your partner. And
it goes both ways.
Yeah.
It's like if you want to build a house, you build it on some land. It can be flat or it can be with a few hills and so forth.
Yeah.
You cannot flatten out a hill, right? But you can work with the hill so that you create a house which is beautiful for that.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of understanding how to navigate.
Yeah. Speaking about culture, there is an Egyptian culture here for the talent to work for 2-3 years and then hunt their dream in Europe or in US, hunt their next job abroad. How did that affect you and how do you see it?
It's
that's a big sigh. That's a big sigh.
But it's because it's actually one of the advantages with Egypt in the first place, that there's a tradition. Traditionally, Egypt has been the supplier of engineers building up the whole Middle East and so forth. That's a positive thing because that creates basically a competence within the Egyptian culture itself. When we then look at young people within tech, yes, there's a lot of people who has this dream of going to Europe or the US or whatever. In reality, what I see, some make it well because they're really good talents and so forth. But I also see a lot of people ending up decreasing their living standards. Because here, well, we're actually able to offer them a job with a fair and good salary. They get a position based on that. They get a living standard based on that in Egypt. When they then move to Europe, it's a different culture.
Yeah.
You cannot just move to Scandinavia and then say, well, okay, I'm getting this and that in salary. No, because the prices on transportation are higher, prices on housing is higher, living costs are higher, and so forth. All these things. And then on top of that, we also, in Denmark, pay around 50% tax, right? So you have to deduct that. So I see many examples where people actually move and end up having a life which is not necessarily better than what they were having here. And I really feel sorry for that. I would really hope that people would think more of Egypt. Generate income to Egypt here. That's what Egypt needs.
Of course, but you know, a lot will disagree that people are not going out just for that. They are going for better quality of life. They are going out for better countries from their point of view. Of course, this is everyone's choice to make.
Yes, of course.
There are a lot of pros and cons to both options. However, a lot will disagree because they see working abroad as an upgrade for the quality of life itself, and that's what they need to experience or discover. Yeah. So,
but it's not necessarily an upgrade.
It depends. You're saying it depends.
It depends quite a lot, and it's just you might be a very good employee here. You might have a good salary. You have a house, or a flat. You have a car, and so forth. Chances of buying flats and cars and stuff like that in Scandinavia, for instance, that's going to be difficult. That's going to be really, really difficult.
It comes after years of working. And
it might benefit their children. And that's fair enough to say, well, okay, I'll basically kind of sacrifice my own life in order to give my children a better life. Sometimes I see families being split up, not the dad going somewhere working, not seeing his kids, not seeing his wife on less than once a year on a vacation or something like that, because it's simply also expensive to travel and so forth. So I understand that people have a dream, and I encourage people to go after their dreams generally, but it's a good idea to think about things and think it through, because there's also a lot of sacrifices in that. And of course, we've also had employees leaving for Europe. I normally say, well, why don't you get the European experience? Why don't you get a job where you, from time to time, visit customers in Europe? And all these things without leaving your home country, actually benefiting Egypt by creating income to Egypt. And at the same time not losing your family. Family is dear for Egyptians.
Of course. Part of the culture as well.
That's part of the culture.
Yeah.
A family here is like, hundreds of people. and yes, they're still there, but you kind of lose the contact because you don't see them. Why miss out on your uncles and aunts and sisters and brothers and cousins and so forth? That network is so strong in Egypt that disappears when you go abroad. You don't have that network.
Since we both met at an event trying to promote Egypt better, and this is a good time to tell our story, right? This
It involves a burger.
Yeah, I will tell them that. So the first time I met Hans, it was virtual. We were on that round table. It was a round table for with the government and with the educational institutes and with businesses, seeing how to increase the IT exports and solving the problems and niches for talents and businesses in the software industry. And then I met Hans, we introduced each other, and we talked about our businesses and what we are doing. And then maybe a year later, we met at a conference outside of Egypt. We were both promoting Egypt, promoting the IT industry and so forth. And then we met in a very weird situation where he was standing outside of the conference, eating a sandwich, and I was just passing by. And then I all of a sudden came in and said, "Hey, are you Hans, Heinrich?" And he said, "Yes, who was it?" I said, I'm Bessam. We met at the round table." And he said, "Oh yeah," and we kept talking for like 40 minutes till his sandwich got cold and he had to throw it away. And yeah, I still owe you that sandwich. It's a McDonald's sandwich, but we are not going to do that because we're boycotting, right? So I'm not going.
And at the moment, we're not eating McDonald's.
No, exactly. So you talked about the potential of Egypt and how Egypt should increase the IT exports and we need to market ourselves better. So, for instance, we are not, although we do have the talents in huge companies, we do have people in huge universities, MIT, Harvard, Stanford, and so forth, and we have people in Facebook, Google, Booking.com, for instance, Truecaller, and a lot of other bigger companies. Yet we are not branded as technologists. We are not branded as software engineers, for instance, like India. India is so branded. But you said we have the dedication, we have the communication skills, we have the language, we have the talent. Why aren't we branded? What do we need to do in order to be better at branding ourselves and marketing ourselves better to increase our IT exports?
Well, first of all, there's a huge opportunity for Egypt because, as you said, all the things on the service and the product and people and so forth, that actually check marks all of that. There's a huge opportunity because what Egypt basically needs is to export things and export brain power. Having them inside the country actually makes super sense to Egypt, both now and going forward. I think that if the challenges, Egypt is a proud people. There's a proud history and so forth, but reality is that not that many people in Europe actually knows that. They see Egypt as a Suez Canal. They see it as the Red Sea going on holiday. Yeah. I still meet people who say, "Well, IT Egypt, really?" And it's a matter of knowing the possibility. Yeah. And as you said, India has been promoting India as a tech country. Trust me, not all of India is tech.
No, I know.
And you have other countries who promote. You have quite a lot of big logos here. You mentioned some of them. There's a lot more, and that's amazing. Why are they here? They are here because if you look at Google or Microsoft or IBM or all Accenture and all these big companies, they have lots of people whose job is to find the best location for them. Yeah. They do all the benchmarking, they do all the investigation and so forth. They will find Egypt because it's good. Yeah. if you look at businesses, it's not, yes, we have the big logos, but the main part of business is smaller and medium-sized companies. Sorry, they don't have a department to find their next location and so forth. They need help, and in my eyes, Egypt needs to be much more visible. Egypt needs to work much, I would say, smarter than just attending a trade show.
Yeah.
A trade show, that's fine, but that's just part of the deal.
Yeah.
Egypt has a huge advantage in the sense that there's a lot of Egyptians, as we already talked about. A lot of Egyptians are working abroad. They are integrated as Germans, as Danes, as Norwegians, or whatever they are. Utilize on some of those people to basically tell the story. Yeah. Utilize on basically people like myself, because I'm able to say things with a different voice than an Egyptian on a stage, basically. And then use Egypt as the location it is. It's a nice place to be if you're visiting.
Yeah.
But do it in the right way. We have from time to time we're doing these what we call inspirational trips, where we basically invite potential customers to come. They will pay for the trip, of course, because it's not a vacation time. We have this where we basically fly people in, take a tour of the office, talk with people, open the cupboards and look at things, ask all the questions, talk with real developers, really understand what it is that we're doing as a company. And then we take them on a tour in the afternoon. And if I say this to many Egyptians, they will say, well, that's not possible. but we will do that half of the day. And then we'll take them on a tour. We'll go and see the pyramids. Yeah. They're there. We'll see the bazaar. We will go on the Nile. We'll have a dinner and so forth. Why? Not to see the pyramids, not to see the bazaar, but to get around in the city, to understand
safe to walk around.
Yes, because it is safe.
Yeah.
If you look at official reports from organizations looking at safety, then Egypt is as safe as in Denmark.
Yeah.
Safer than a lot of European countries and so forth, but that's just not the perception. And unfortunately, there's still some old pictures from what you've seen on television and so forth, back from the revolution, and it's there's this perception that it's probably not safe. And so forth. Reality is totally different. It's actually very safe.
Yeah.
Watch out in the traffic, but that's not not the same. So, but Egypt need to invest. That's the old story, right? You need to invest to earn money.
Yeah.
We're doing the same, right? We invest in creating a company, an organization, all these things that has to be there in order to be able to earn money. And marketing-wise, Egypt have to do the same.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of things that Egypt can use to do that, because it's difficult to market something which does not work.
Yeah.
It's difficult to market that somebody has the skills that they don't have, and so forth. That's not the case with Egypt. I have never had anybody in Egypt as a potential customer who flew back and said, never, ever, ever again. They all say, well, okay, I'm surprised. I'm surprised about the language skills. I'm surprised about the way things are working.
Yeah.
I'm surprised about the skills level. I'm surprised that you've actually created this kind of a Scandinavian environment in Egypt.
Yeah.
And so forth. And they're all so positively surprised by the kindness of Egyptians. And and you basically have to get used to that, because if you fly in with the perception that okay, people are there to basically do you something bad, and you find out that they actually mean it when they say welcome to Egypt, how can I help you, and so forth, then you get a positive surprise. But it is a little bit of a surprise for some people.
So you're doing this amazing 2-day trip just to get people onboarded, and then onboarded to Egypt and get them try to do their own businesses in Egypt. So you are individually and as a business, you are trying to promote Egypt, right?
That's definitely.
So other businesses can do the same as well. So you're saying if you did this 2-day trip, they are visiting you for meetings or for contracting or something, you invite them for a 2-day trip, trying to show them around, to show them that it is possible to have an offshore building and a company in here, and that it is safe. You do have the talents, you do have culture, you do have communication skills and English language or language, and it's easy to do. That's what you are trying to do. And from an European guy, it's different from an Egyptian guy. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, definitely.
And what you said that we are trying to say to the government as well that please do the same activities. Doesn't have to be the exact same thing, to promote us more, to bring in those European guys who try to, or CEOs of companies who tried and succeeded in doing businesses in Egypt, to promote the whole thing abroad. Yeah. So these are all great ideas.
Yeah, and sorry for interrupting, but my advice would basically also be to focus less on the big logos. Yeah. Because if you look at the bulk of the need for IT, it's big logos. They need hundreds of people. Sure. But if you pile up the bulk of small, medium-sized companies, which really has the problem, because we were talking about attractiveness before, right? It's the same in Europe. There's a lack of talent. So if you're a smaller company, you're less attractive than the larger companies, quite often. So they are the one having the biggest problem. The big companies have a problem because they need many. The small companies, they don't need that many, but they have a problem attracting, because they of course they can't offer the same. So the bulk that I would address would be the small and medium-sized companies, because the big logos, they will find Egypt on their own. And the potential of all these small companies, or smaller, they're still large companies, right? Are just combined a lot bigger. Huge. But you have to address it in a different way. Yeah, of course. Well,
that was a lot of insights, and it's quite a journey. But I'm a little bit curious about your first day in Egypt. So a Danish guy coming to Egypt for the first time knows nothing about the Egyptian culture. I'm really curious about how did it go? So how was your first day?
I think that part of my time in Egypt, the first basically couple of years, I actually tapped into a lot of my experience from my years in the Danish army, because then you're prepared for everything and you needed to be that at that time. But for instance, when I came here the first time, I needed to meet I think it was 9 companies or something like that. And I had no clue where they were. I could see that, well, Cairo is a large city, both in square meters and people and so forth, but I had no idea of the city, right? So I had to, look them up, and I was looking at the address and say, Heliopolis, let me try and find Heliopolis on the map. And then, that's there. And then I put a pin in Google Maps and said, okay, that's there somewhere. And because I couldn't find the address, right? But I could find the area. And I did that with all the meetings, and then I kind of grouped them to different days. Said, well, okay, hopefully they're in the same area, because it seems to be. And then when I got here, then I got a driver. And from Denmark, I was expecting, okay, if I give him an address, then he will find that. That, you have to remember, that was before. At that time, it wasn't really allowed to have GPS signals, so nobody had an app like we have today, or Google Maps and so forth. So I was surprised, and the driver goes in the direction of Heliopolis, and he rolls down the window and asks somebody in the street,
Yeah.
"Do you know where this street is?"
That's pure Egyptian.
And everybody interacts. Everybody comes and say, "I think it's somewhere over there. Try, go that way, and then maybe to the left, and there's this old house." And then he would go there, and then we would kind of box our way into finding the street, and then the whole charade starts again.
Yeah.
Then, okay, we're looking for this company. Do you know what? I don't know. And somebody picks up somebody from the kiosk nearby. I think it's down there. Try and ask the guy selling ice cream there or whatever. And then
And you did that for the 9 companies.
9 companies.
9 companies.
3 days. But I found them all.
Yeah, that's good news.
And even though you stand there and then you don't see the company outside,
Yeah.
right? So you have to be a little bit aggressive
Yeah.
and knock on some doors and ask some people.
Yeah. That's a long journey.
That's
I would
part of
say.
the fun of doing
Yeah, of
business
course.
in Egypt, right?
Yeah, I would say it's a long journey. I believe you deliver the message of hope.
Yeah, but there is hope.
Yeah, for talents, for businesses, for the government, and for the whole world. Maybe you never know who's gonna watch it. So
No, but honestly, Egypt has the potential.
yeah,
Egypt has an enormous pool of really well-educated people.
yeah,
We just need to tell the world about it.
yeah,
And right now is the timing, because of the dynamics that are happening in this market, especially within IT, that some of the markets supplying this, especially thinking of Eastern Europe, is just getting too expensive. It's there are risks in the area now, based on the present war between Ukraine and Russia and so forth. So there's just a security issue in those areas now, which was not there before.
yeah,
But that's not the main reason. The reason is basically the same as my analyze in the beginning, saying, well, this is going to be really, really expensive.
yeah,
And there has to be a difference in price, because there is something which is lost when you're not in the same room, basically.
yeah.
So there has to be a difference. And many of the business cases which has been based on a certain price level somewhere in Eastern Europe just does not fit anymore, because the prices are increasing so much as they are.
Yeah.
So there's a great opportunity for Egypt. It's just go, go, go.
Yeah, I would say there is no better ending than what you said. Egypt has potential and has a lot of talent. I think that is...
Just don't keep it as a secret.
Yeah.
Tell the world.
React with it.
Yeah.
React with it.
Yeah.
That's the best ending message. That would be the wrap-up. That was a great episode with Hans. Thank you so much, Hans, for being here. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your time,
It was a great
Bessem.
time. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And that is الخلاصة. شكرا.